Good morning, dearies. Welcome to the craft kitchen. Well, it is 5 in the morning, and this isn't because I couldn't sleep anymore, but because I've been trying to make this video for the last 3 days. And yeah, we do have a construction site next door. The 2 apartment houses next to us, to our house, are renovated from the inside and the outside, and it is quite noisy. So every time I had set up my camera setting and prepared everything, it got very loud outside. So since I had to get up at 4 anyway, I thought, why not make this video at 5, so I will have at least 2 hours until the noise begins again. Today I'm going to show you how to make these colorful collage papers. Yeah, well, these were lucky pieces because these I'm using paper towels now and then to pick up the water when I'm making mixed media, and I always cut my paper towels into 4 like so. So it is smaller and easier to handle, and I do keep some of them, just pull them apart like you would do with napkins. And what else? Yeah, these are napkin backings, like this one. This shape I've used for the autumn journal, and this is one of the white backings. I just sprayed with coffee. This also, and here I do have, yeah, kind of like a negative print, you know, the second layer of a napkin, also sprayed with coffee, and you still can see the negative print, the shadow print, just white and white. And yeah, this one I've colored with Easter egg dyes, loads of them, and coffee, and I think, yeah, rust water too, so it got very dark. I love it. And I also have this crepe paper here, green and yellow. This one I just dipped into coffee, and then I sprayed it with rust water when it was still wet, or yeah, more of damp. And I actually cut just a piece of the roll. From this roll you can see the color isn't really light fast. So this has been all this green, this apple green, and now, yeah, it is more like, I don't know, pastel green at some point. There, you can see it. So I thought, why not use this as collage paper, but the bold colors aren't for me, so I just dipped this in coffee and sprayed it with rust water, also this yellow one, and I just kept the rolls like they are. I just pushed them a bit and let them dry on a tray for some days. I might also have opened this up at some point, I don't remember. So you don't want to get this moldy. So yeah, you have to keep an eye on it. And for the project today we're using these white sheets, second and third, from some napkins. I always keep them some smaller napkins and just some leftover pieces. And yeah, I also kept the shadow prints, the second layers. Now you can't see this very good on camera, but yeah, maybe this was a feathered, we get some white underneath, some feathered dream catcher, and there's a beautiful shadow print. So I'm trying to keep this shadow print after it has been colored. Maybe you can see it afterwards. Let's give it a try. So for this batch I'm going to use Easter egg dies. Mine are, yeah, shaped in this pill form, but you can get them back to their powdered form very easily. This is because everyone's using these brusho powders. They're quite nice, right? Come in various colors, but they're really expensive. So yeah, I'm using powdered Easter egg dies for this because in here are 5 of these pills for 85 cents, and yeah, they will last you forever. I'm using them to dye my papers, to make spray colors, to dye the tissue paper and napkin and whatnot, so way cheaper. To get them back into their powdered form, I'm just using 2 spoons. So I do have red, purple and green, and blue and yellow are empty. So I'm just taking one of these blue color pills and smash them between 2 spoons. Maybe where you live you can get the Easter egg dies in powdered form. Maybe, I don't know. Ooh. In Germany it is, yeah, this pressed powder or it is liquid. Well, using the liquid Easter egg dye is also a good idea, because you just water them down, put them in yeah, a spray bottle, and then you can spray your tissue paper or just use, don't know, watercolors. Put a bit in a spray bottle, add some water, and there you go. So I do have a lot of blue on here. I will have to clean this because these colors are really vibrant. So I'm also powdering this. I don't have a tiny funnel for this, so you could make a funnel with a piece of paper, but I'm way too lazy. And yeah, I do have to watch the time because, like I told you, the construction site. Yes. So I'm removing this mess here, and now I'm just layering my napkin backings on this piece of baking paper. I've tried to just place my papers or my tissue or the napkins on this baking tray. It's a really old baking tray. I don't use anymore for baking. But when the papers got dry after a while, they eventually stuck to the tray. So I'm placing a piece of baking paper just parchment paper, you know, the non-stick thingy, and just sticking my napkins. So let's see, I'm going to alternate a bit to get another effect. So I don't want this much color on these. Where's your top? I think this is the top. Trying to get them somewhat flat. Yeah, I've stored them in a box for quite a while, so they're a bit wrinkly. Okay, there you go. And another layer. So I will turn you over. And there. And this one. So you could just, like I said, use some spray colors and spray your napkins until they're soaking wet, your tissue, your paper, whatever, and you're ready to go. But I'm using these powdered colors because, yeah, it's a cheap alternative for the brush stroke colors. So let's see, I'm starting with some red. These are, I don't know, my husband brought me some of these tiny glasses. I just punched some holes in here. You could also use a maybe pepper shaker. A pepper shaker because the holes are bigger than in the salt shakers. So then I'm just taking this. Ooh, way too much. So let's see. And just dabbing at my shaker and putting the tiniest bit of color on here. And now I'm going to spray this. Yes. All these colors are really, really great. And maybe some yellow here and there. Come out. Again, spraying. You could also just put your colors on here, all your colors you wish to go on there, and spray just afterwards. Where's my purple? There you are. And I'm going in with the purple color. When you're putting on your colors first and then water them, the colors will mix way better. I'll show you in a moment with some tissue paper. Beautiful, just like confetti. And no, I'm not dumping the parchment paper when this is all dry. I'm actually keeping it to make journal pages to give some more texture to my books. So let's see. This is absolutely not my color concept, but I'm letting this dry near my heater for a few hours just to show you the outcome of these papers, and afterwards I can spray them with rust water or coffee or both to get this more dark grunge look. So I'm placing this near my heater for about 4 hours, I think, maybe 5. And then I'm going to make another batch with tissue papers, free tissue papers, and spray colors, homemade spray colors. So I got some tissue paper. This was the box lining of a pair of shoes, I think. Yeah, it's big enough for this. So you could use watercolors, Easter egg dies, any color that needs a porous surface to dry on this, because one side is kind of like porous and the other side is a bit more smooth, not coated, but yeah, very smooth out, so that the water from the colors won't be able to penetrate the paper as good as with the napkin sheets. So I'm tearing this. You could actually use the whole piece on a table with a plastic tablecloth or something like this underneath, and then just spray it and let it sit. But I do use my baking trays, so I'm just tearing this. I'm going to be using acrylic paints for this, because sometimes you want to have a bit of texture, and the kind of like plastic surface, it is plastic. Acrylic paint has, when it's dry, can with this technique just look like stained glass. So I'm going to crumple this a bit more, flatten it out again. This is the rough side and this is the smooth side. There you go. Obviously, any color that needs a porous surface to dry wouldn't stick that good. Maybe on this one, but there are papers, just like this coated parchment paper, tissue papers in packaging that feel like sheets of plastic. I think they are plastic coated, so for this you also could use acrylic paints. So let's see, I'm using this acrylic paint, brown and black mixture. My label is falling apart, and I actually will give it a try to mix this with this teal spray color made of Easter egg dies. And I have to make some new orangey color. For this I'm using these cheap, really old acrylic paints, and yeah, just mix them together in here, like so. A bit of orange, a tiny bit of the dark brown to get this a bit more dark. There you go. And to stay in the rust color range, a bit of sienna brown. There you go. And then just mix it with water. And this will give you more of a wash than a color, so this will be see-through when dry. So closing this and shake, shake, shake. Yeah, my bottle is already very dirty and I can't get it clean anymore, so I can't really see what happens in here. So I'm just using this piece of paper towel to spray on here so I don't waste anything. Yep, much water. Yep, quite right. So yeah, you can see there's already some color on the tissue paper, so I'm just randomly spraying these. This is a very light brown, really a thin brown wash I made. And going in with my orangey spray, and then again I'm spraying a bit, no, dripping a bit of this teal color on here, just to see if it will work. Again, brown. Maybe I should put some more brown paint in here. I've used this wash instead of coffee on a very smooth surface, but for this I need a darker color. So more brown in here. Again, give it a good shake. And let's see. Oh yeah, much better. Spraying over this again. I want to have color all over. And because I do have these wrinkles, maybe you can see this, and there are two types of color here. These edges there are very prominent, and I will have all these wrinkled stuff here. This looks quite good to me. Maybe a bit more of this teal. Yay! The spray bottle is leaking, but in this case it's quite alright. And maybe a bit more orange. Just to give this a bit more of a rusty look. So, and now I'm just putting over my next layer and just do the same. Try not to press, just push this down slightly so it will stick on here. Let's see what happens. Ooh. Ooh. I forgot to protect my surface. Before I go on, I'm going to clean it. Yep, much better. So, I'm going to spray these two. And for the last, fifth layer, I'm going to make an experiment. So for my last layer, I'm going to use this shiny, waxy-like paper. I don't think this is actually wax, because this would be way too expensive for packaging. So I think it's kind of like a plastic coating. But I really want to know if the acrylic paints are going to stick on here. And yes, the Easter egg dye color also, because this stuff sticks on anything. There, yeah, like I told you, my bottle is leaking. I really have to find another one, and this will stay on here for the next 2 days, even if I'm going to wash my hair. So with the acrylic paints on these papers, you have to make sure your paper doesn't get all dry. You let this sit for, let's say, 2 hours. Now the first layer maybe just for 1 hour, and then you look after your papers, because with the polyacrylics, there, acrylic paint, it's actually plastic in your paint, this will stick together when it's dry. So I'm going to let this dry and have an eye on it, like every half or every hour. And then I'm going to show you the results, and maybe we're going to use them. Before I'm showing you the results of our tissue and napkin backings, I'm going to be using what I still have to decorate some of these playing cards. Beautiful playing cards. So these I got, all 3 of those I got from a flea market some time ago. These cards are beautifully aged already. Maybe you can see this there. And the coating isn't that heavy. They're kind of like matte cards, so I can decorate them without having to remove the coating, whereas these cards are really, really glossy there on both sides. So before you decorate these cards with papers, you might want to use some sandpaper, sandblock, whatever, to remove a bit of the coating on here, so the glue and the paper will be able to penetrate the cards. You can use sandpaper or sandblock. You could use an emery board for this. What I use, come here, is a sanding disc, but this is not one of Tim Holtz's sanding discs, because in our workshop the men are using a sanding tool with Velcro pads, sand pads, kind of like. So I can just cut a circle out of these. These are used already, and actually the used ones are good enough to use on paper. So I cut out a circle that fits on my dauber like this. Sometimes I use the cap of my glue stick, just trace here and cut this out. Maybe you might want to stick this on and trace, and then you can cut. Well, I do have a 2-inch circle punch, but this is too big for this circle. This is in fact 1 1/4 inch, I think. Yeah, you could also use this 2-inch circle punch one of these sandpaper circles out, and then just trace and cut. Everything works with this. And actually I'm using matte Mod Podge for this, because I have to use it up at some point. And yes, after this is dry, it is still a bit sticky, but I'm going to show you a trick on how to prevent your like seep through glue or Mod Podge, or even the back of your sticky tape, you know, peeking out a bit, from being sticky at all. So I'm just, first I need some under here. So first I'm just slightly removing the coating on here, the tiniest bit. just removing a bit of the glossiness. And yeah, what happens is actually you're gonna be removing the tiniest bit of the print on here, but doesn't matter. So, and because I actually do like the backing of this, I'm not going to sand this or decorate it, just leave it as it is. So now I have a rough surface. There you can see less gloss. Here and there still is some gloss, but it doesn't matter. I have to remove the dust from my fingers, and of course from the card, just using a dry rag. There you go. Scrubbing on it a bit. So, and for this I'm using, yeah, my lighter pieces. Also going to be trying the craft paper, because I actually want the print on the card to be peeking through my collage tissue a bit. So let me see. These are the ones I kept when I was using them for my mixed media mess. See, yeah, oh yeah, this is absolutely beautiful. So setting this aside to dry. This actually won't take long, because Mod Podge dries very fast. There. And then I'm, yeah, just using one of those. No, I do actually want to, yeah, use the crepe paper. So I actually might want to have a bit more of a print underneath. Oh yeah, already destroyed. So the crepe paper is a bit more fragile when it's wet than the napkin or the tissue paper, which is kind of like odd, but we're working with this. There you go. And since we do have a hole here, I'm going to try and make another hole, just like here, so you can see his eyes, and maybe some hole here. Come on! There you go. So, setting this aside to dry also. So, and now I'm using the coffee dyed backing. Oh yes, this will turn out really nice. And again, now for the rather unspectacular unveiling of the results of our coloring experiment. Well, for me it's not an experiment. I've done this quite a lot of times. So maybe you remember when I was test spraying my rusty lookalike acrylic color here on this piece of paper towel. I let this dry and I just placed it here at the edge of the rather colorful napkins and just turn it over and over and over. There, I forgot a piece. Well, happens. So I'm just going to pull this apart, and I'm using just clear tape for this. So I do have the first layer with this print on it. I'm not going to use this, but I will use the other two sheets for sure, because they're really, really pretty. So again, another two pieces. So this was the first layer of our napkin stack, and you can see the colors here turned out way darker than underneath, especially where it was a bit more wrinkled. And yeah, it is really like this. You just can pull them, the sheets apart like this. Well, when you're using coffee, in instant coffee, there's kind of like a bit of, I don't know, protein, and the edges of your sheets might stick a bit together, so you have to be careful. Well, if it tears, it doesn't matter because it is collage paper anyway. But look at this. So this is the second sheet, still a bit darker, but the deeper, the nicer the colors and the shades on here. Also, this is where the napkin was lying upside down on this. Let me show you. A sheet of baking paper. And of course I'm going to keep this because actually this looks like some kind of colored braille page. Yeah, I know, wouldn't make any sense, but it is so nice. So I'm going to keep this. With these pages, I know you can't write on them. Yeah, well, actually you can with a pigment marker or, yeah, well, Sharpie pen, for example. But they give a little bit of texture to your journal pages, right? So I'm going to keep this. This one, this paper bag, parchment paper bag to be exact, very thin. I just dip down on these acrylic painted tissue sheets, just like this, and then let it dry. And since this is acrylic paint, I can easily paint it with coffee when I am going to use it. Well, this has been the kind of line of waxed tissue paper. Let's see. Well, this, yep. Let me get a white piece of paper for this so you can see it. There. It comes off the tiniest bit, and when you polish this, it actually gets a bit more shiny on here, which is the nature of acrylic paints. And even the Easter egg dies, let me see, yep, they do absolutely stay on here. So you could really just use this plastic coated tissue paper with just Easter egg dies. Nice. Also the back side. Oh, this is really pretty. And as you can see, still see through. So then we have the bit more rough pieces. Yeah, because this is acrylic paint. It dries really fast and it is acting like glue when it's dry. So some of the edges dried of course faster than the middle pieces. And I tear this, but you know, I'm going to tear this anyway. And this is also pretty, really, really pretty. I love it. Still see-through there. And another one. Oh gosh, so nice. So, and this is the baking paper sheet that was lying on my baking sheet, and here still is some of the paper kind of like glued on. Ooh, yes, this is a really pretty strip. I'm going to keep this, of course, and yeah, I'm also going to keep this baking paper. Actually, the only thing that's coming off is the acrylic paints. The Easter egg die just sticks on here. Nope, no Easter egg die on my paper towel. This stuff is really mean. Yeah, I'm actually using Easter egg dies also for dyeing my knitting wool for socks and such. Pretty, really, really colorful. So yeah, you want to be careful when using Easter egg dies, especially in Europe. I have no idea if they're like these in the US. Maybe they are. But you see, you can use pretty much any sort of paint or dye to dye your papers, to dye your collage papers, or even your ribbons, as long as they are made to stick on your material. Now that all the cards are dry, and of course the collage paper on top also, you can see they're all see-through. Even the darkish crepe paper, which has kind of like a wood grain, I'd say, and a really nice texture. And here I've created some holes in the paper, in the wet paper, and I've been using my sanding tool, the sanding disc, to distress the parts where the color is very vibrant, showing through. I've already distressed the crepe paper on top. So yeah, looks really nice. I was afraid it would be too dark, but I like it. So now we want to get rid of the edges. The simplest thing you can do is just tear the edges off, like so. Might take you a while, but you'll get really nice fringed edges here. Of course, you could also just use a paintbrush, thin paintbrush, with a bit of water and paint around the edges, but this would get the Mod Podge or whatever glue you're using wet again, and yeah, this would be kind of like a really sticky mess. So this is one method, and you know, you might already know, you can also use a sand block or some sandpaper, emery board, or your distressing tool, and just go around here, and the edge will be a bit cleaner. And of course you always can use scissors to get this off, but I really like the old and distressed and used look on these. Second one. And let's do this one also. Now I have 3 ready-made cards to go in stock. Just have to pull out 1, 2, 3 cards when I'm making ephemera. Backgrounds already on here, and I just have to decorate with bits and bobs, or kind of like stamping. So, and this one, I already know it is, these peek-throughs are way too bright for my liking, so I'm just using this tiny makeup sponge and just distress the white parts a bit more with Vintage Photo. You could actually use just ink on here and let it drip, or some color spray or whatever, but since I don't know what I'm going to use these cards for, because they're actually for my stock, there, I'm just, yeah, kind of like mute the white on here the tiniest bit. This one, don't know, I could leave the white there. So, and what I'm going to do last, before I put them in the box with the other cards, I'm using cornstarch. No, this isn't soapy anymore. This is for cornstarch in the craft kitchen. I'm just dabbing my finger in here, just like this, and just kind of like rub over the Mod Podge. There you go. And now it is not sticky anymore. It's just like plain paper. I could put this in the box with the other cards just like it is, but I'm going to show you what you're doing when you're using the card, because you can see there's quite a bit of starch at the wrinkles on here. So I'm just using a stiff brush, just like so, to get rid of the excess cornstarch. You could also use rice starch or potato starch or wheat starch, whatever you like, just starch. And then you won't see this anymore. You don't want to use this technique right before you glue something on here. You want to leave your cards at least for 2 or 3 days, with or without the excess, doesn't matter. And let the starch take on the water in the glue that's still in here, and kind of like seal this sticky mess you do have on here. Because when you use the starch right before you want to glue something down, well, most types of tacky glue will still work on this, but if you use don't know, glue stick or score glue on here, your glue won't stick on your paper, which is covered with starch. I'm actually using this trick also for some household problems, like you have, yeah, your jam jars, and there's kind of like a seal from the lid to the jar, and the edge of the jar is sticky, and you're still not finished using up the jam. So I'm just using a bit of starch, just dab it on the stickiness, and there you go. Also, when you use tape, just like this, fold it over and yeah, maybe cover the edge of a page or a book, and then the two edges are not lined up exactly. It will always be a bit sticky. Just use some cornstarch or whatever starch, rub it on here, and you're good to go. You might also use baby powder for this, but some brands of baby powder have a lot of oil in the powder, so I don't know if this is a good idea, because yeah, with the chemicals in the glue and the oil, yeah, maybe the oil might get too prominent again. I don't know. I didn't try this because I always have some starch here in the craft kitchen and just use this. Since I have this out, this is actually the last piece of my H tape. I'm gonna be using the darker, oh, not you, the darker pieces of scrap paper, paper towel and napkin I've already colored to cover this new junk journal cover. This is actually the other half of the Amazon shipping bag I've used to make the leftover kind of like journal, but for this one I've folded the packaging in half and glued it together, so this is a bit more sturdy, and I've used my homemade tape to seal the edges, and now I'm waiting for another batch to dry, completely dry, so I can use the same tape to reinforce, to further reinforce. Yeah, well, I actually could use this for this. Yeah, to further reinforce the spines I've made here. So yeah, this is also great for covering your book covers. Now, dearies, have fun creating your own collage papers and maybe a stash of pre-made playing cards. And as always, stay creative and be excellent to each other. Bye!